Good afternoon, everyone. This meeting of the City Council is now called to order. Today is Tuesday, April 21st, 2026, and we will start with a roll call. Ms. Hawkins.
Yes, Mayor Buck.
Here.
Councilors Wendland.
Oh, Wendland. That would be me. Yes, I am here.
Burdick.
Here.
Corrigan. Here. Councilor Afghan is on Zoom, and Councilor Maboop.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, everyone, will you please stand, remove your hats, and join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you, everyone. So this, and the first week of May, we recognize public service. It's Public Service Recognition Week. Public employees, they play a vital role in delivering services that cultivate an exceptional quality of life for all community members in Lake Oswego. So we proclaim the first week of May 2026 as Public Service Recognition Week to acknowledge and honor the dedication and often unseen contributions of our city employees. And you'll find this proclamation as well as other city proclamations on our website. And we also have a presentation as at the top of this meeting from our friends at Meals on Wheels. And I'd like to invite Judy Hathaway and Karen Alice Jones to please come forward. Don't be shy. Good afternoon to you two.
Hi. Would
Hi.
you like us to sit?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Tell us how you're doing.
Okay. We'll try not to sit on one another.
Yes, don't do that.
Good afternoon. Hello, hello. So, good afternoon. I'm Karen Alice Jones, Judy Hathaway. We're co-chairs for Lake Oswego Meals on Wheels. And thank you very much for having us here today. And we have almost, we meaning Meals on Wheels, have almost a full house. And as I say your name, please stand up and be recognized. So we've got Pierre Marone, Bob Irvin, got to see who, Nancy Jones, Kelly Lair, Shane McCarville, Rhea Dialogue back there. And then we have two staff people, our friend Michael Buck, who's direct staff to us, and Maria, head of the Adult Community Center. You know her. Did I miss any of our people? Anyway, almost a full house today, so that's really cool.
Great to have you all here.
So before we do what you want us to do, which is submit to you a supportive check, I just want to give you a few statistics that come from the past 12 months. So first of all, the total meals served from the Adult Community Center during the past 12 months comes in at over, drum roll, 25,000, and that's home delivered and dine-in. A lot of meals, but those are the statistics. And Michael, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I used your sheet, so I think I'm right. And the cost of food and food-related supplies and the personnel costs, which are the meal program manager, cook, baker, and kitchen help, those costs are up quite a bit. And yes, all the food that's served at the center is made in-house, so that's a wonderful deal. Great desserts, great bread products too. Mm-hmm. And then the cost per meal is also up substantially from March of 25, which was $2.69. Now, March just passed, it was $4.29. So as you can see, costs of personnel and food-related are all costs that are up. And related obviously to that, the reverse of that is that program revenues are down substantially and during this past year. And some of those revenues in the past, we had some COVID payments, but that's been a few years ago. Sure. We also had the Older Americans Act, and that has gone down quite a bit. So costs are up, revenues are down. So then we come to the fore, and we're the Lake Oswego Meals on Wheels Board. Our task is to fundraise, and what we want to do is make up the deficit between the city's Meals on Wheels budget and what it costs then to support and run the program. So that's what we're all about. We have several fundraisers a year, and we've had a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but we've had a lot of fun doing it, and we've got a terrific crew and city staff that's wonderful. So that's kind of the quick overview picture. And that having been said, we have a check here that we're delighted to present to the city for $19,867. That represents that deficit that I just spoke to. So I don't know who, I guess I'll give it to our mayor.
Oh, thank you, Karen Alice. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all for your work. It sounds like what you are doing to help fundraise the program is needed now more than ever, and we really appreciate all the work you do to involve the community in Meals on Wheels, obviously to raise the funds, but to provide this lifeline to folks in their homes, and the community gathering at the Adult Community Center is all very important. So thank you all so much for what you do. Really appreciate it. We are now going to move into public comment, and I have two folks who are signed up, one on Zoom. We're going to start on Zoom, and then we'll go to in-person. But if there's anyone else here who would like to provide public comment and has not signed up to do so, you can please fill out one of these white forms on the back table and then hand it to Ms. Hawkins. But we will go to Ryan Roberts, joining us on Zoom. Mr. Roberts.
Hello there.
Oh, that's not. Hi,
can
good
you hear me?
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Ryan, you can't see us here, but you'll have 3 minutes to deliver your comments, and I can let you know if you go over. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you. And I'm hoping you hold me to it. So thank you for the opportunity to testify here in front of City Council. My name is Ryan Roberts. I'm with the firm Schwabe, Williamson, and Wyatt, and I represent Public Storage. Public Storage owns property at the 801 North State Street in Lake Oswego. This property is located in the Foothills District. All of my testimony here today is going to be in relation to agenda item 6.2, which will be discussed by others later, but I wanted to at least offer my portion now and here. Our major theme that we want to hit is the pages 56 to 59 of attachment 8 to agenda item 6.2 addresses 2 access points for the proposed update to the Foothills District, which include the Terwilliger Boulevard intersection and the public storage access between avenues D and E. We are sitting here today offering testimony to state that if the city were to modify the public storage access between avenues D and E in any way that would modify it from its current condition, that would be considered a taking. And given that the public storage facility is one of the more profitable facilities in the public storage portfolio, such a taking would be tens of millions of dollars. So what we're hoping to do is engage in a conversation which we unfortunately have been left out of to date so far with regard to Foothill District planning. Despite our numerous attempts to reach out to city planners and to just start the ball and get the conversation going, where we can come up with a collaborative approach to the city's overall goal of redeveloping that area. We find that as this is perplexing and rather unfortunate, as agenda item 6.2 attachments 3, 4, and 6 show numerous community engagement, numerous opportunities for community engagement that have occurred and other collaborations with other stakeholders in the area. Nevertheless, we are still open to having conversations with the city and hope to do so as soon as possible with the right contact person. And so that we can get into the conversation early and to make sure that everybody, including the city, is taking the right steps forwards for everyone's best interests. And with that, I yield my time. So thank you very much for that opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Lisa Odato. Hi, Lisa. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the time and energy that you dedicate to our community. I'm Lisa Adato. I'm a co-founder and board member of the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network, LOSN. And I'm here today, my purpose is to invite you to a presentation that we're hosting about clean energy options in the Foothills area. We support the staff draft Foothills vision and guiding principles and encourage you to do so as well. We thank the city staff and the consulting team for considering our input in crafting the vision and principles. We're pleased to see sustainability explicitly called out in the vision. Many of the principles are in alignment with our thoughts and recommendations, particularly the goal that calls for integrating sustainability, climate resilience, including clean energy, and resilient infrastructure. As a way to support these ideas, we propose that we collaboratively explore the opportunity to make Foothills a clean energy district. The informational event that I'm inviting you to will be on June 8th from 3:30 to 5 p.m. at LORAC. It will feature speakers who are experts on clean energy, including Michael Friels from the Oregon Department of Energy and one of the authors of the State of Oregon's Energy Strategy, David Curry from EcoSmart Solutions, which is a national developer and manager of thermal energy networks. They do work around the country. And Conrad Brown from PAE, a Portland-based architectural and engineering firm that has worked with clean energy districts throughout Oregon. The purpose of this event is to help ourselves and our audience learn about how this type of district might work and how it fits with Foothills, the goals for Foothills, the goals for Lake Oswego, and the state of Oregon's energy goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for your comments, and thank you for the invitation to the event. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to provide public comment? Okay. And we are going to move into our first of two study sessions of this evening. I'd like to invite firefighter paramedic Nathan Sigler to come forward. Going to and Chief Johnson, good to have you as well. I'm going to talk about our senior facilities prevention and education paramedic grant update.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Don Johnson, Fire Chief for the City of Lake Oswego, and next to me is Nate Sigler. He is our Senior Facilities Prevention and Education Paramedic. I'm really happy to be here today to talk to you folks about the gains that we've made in all of our senior care facilities over the past year. I think you might recall that about 2 years ago, the idea for this program came about, and it was a result of other cities and special districts in Oregon starting to do things differently than we were doing. We were trying to do everything we could to support our senior care facilities, where other entities were starting to enact ordinances, to charge bed taxes, to do things that weren't as productive as they could be. So we, at the time, had council discussions and moved into a different realm and started trying to do training within the facilities and tried to reduce our call volume and provide a better quality of life. Alongside that, the state came through with a grant program, a 2-year grant program for pilot projects. And we applied for that project and got it. And the goal of the project was to enhance the care and outcomes for seniors and to provide preparedness activities at those facilities to make sure that they are as prepared as they could be. That folded right into the council goal in 2024, or excuse me, 2025 and 2026 to enhance safety, security, and preparedness within the community, especially for seniors. Each year, the department responds to about 5,000 calls per year. 3,600 of those are EMS calls. Of that 3,600, about 750 are related directly to the senior care facilities. So it's a good place for us to focus since it's close to a quarter of the calls that we have there. I'm going to turn it over to Nate in a second. Nate's been leading the program for about the last year, and he's really approached the program with an imagination and a kindness that I haven't experienced. He's big on data. His focus has been on fall prevention at the facilities and emergency preparedness. I would tell you the two things. We're looking for the long-term health of the senior community, and we're looking at the long-term preparedness of the community. The work he's doing, I want to tell you up front, we were one of 4 agencies that got a grant across the state of Oregon, and Nate is leading the way with the city of Tualatin, Eugene, especially to make a difference in the senior community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nate.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members. As Chief said, my name is Nate Sigler. I serve as the Paramedic Prevention and Education Specialist here with the Lake Oswego Fire Department. After 10 years of working on the line as a firefighter here in the city, I stepped into this role in June of 2025. I'm here today to share some updates on the Senior Care Initiative grant. As Chief mentioned, we received the grant funding in 2025 to help focus on the stated council goal of increasing preparedness in the Lake Oswego residents, especially seniors and people with disability in the event of a disaster. Over the past year, we've been building and implementing our program focused on just that, improving safety and preparedness in all the licensed areas of the care facilities, all while reducing preventable 911 calls. The goal of the program is simple but critical. How do we keep our most vulnerable residents safe while making sure our emergency system is available when it's truly needed? So adult care facilities present a unique challenge. Here in Lake Oswego, we have 7 facilities located across the city. We count Carmen Oaks as just one facility based on under the banner of the Springs at Carmen Oaks. They actually have 2 buildings, but for our program purposes, we have 7 here in the city. These facilities are essentially an entire neighborhood association or community all housed under one roof. They house residents with complex medical needs, mobility limitations, and varying levels of independence. When something goes wrong, staff are often the first line of defense, and their actions in the first few minutes matter tremendously. At the same time, we were seeing patterns that created a strain on the system. Inconsistent emergency preparedness across facilities, high volumes of low acuity 911 calls, and frequent lift assists. So the question for us became, how do we support these facilities better before something goes wrong? What we focused on in year 1 was building a foundation, not just training, but relationships, systems, and practical tools that actually work in the real world. These included direct outreach and site visits to local care facilities. As you see on the slide here, this is an evacuation drill that we participated at Carmen Oaks. We also participated in hands-on training with lift assist, CPR, fire response, and evacuation. Here we're at the Stafford doing some training on the Samson straps, which are the straps here. We'll go into them a little bit in detail in a moment. They're the same lifting devices that we carry on all our apparatus. We've also worked on development of standardized tools and planning guides, as well as integrating how facility staff and fire crews operate together during an emergency. We also began aligning our training with the incident command system concepts so that during an incident, staff aren't just reacting, but rather they're understanding roles, communication, and accountability. And when we shifted from just the education to this kind of coordination, that's where we really started seeing some change. I want to give you some examples of the impact that we've had over this last 10 months with the program. First, we'll look at some of the data. When I first assumed this role in June, we ran anywhere from 6 to 10 lift assist calls across the facilities in the city per month. We started tracking those in July, identified the need. We went out, we started doing training on assessments, training on lift assist. As a program, we went and bought the Samson straps, which you saw on the slide previous. They're also these straps here. We bought those for each of the facilities and went out and trained them on their use. And with that outreach, we started to see a positive trend in the amount of lift assist calls that we had in the licensed facilities across the city. By the fall, we were and from there on, we've been averaging about 1 per month across all the facilities in the city. Again, that's not a fluke. It's not by accident. You know, that's with the training, the follow-up, and the relationships that we've built in these facilities. Another example that I wanted to give you is a real-world example that happened at Greenridge Estates on the 23rd of this year, February 23rd of this year. February 23rd, our fire department responded to a reported fire at Green Ridge Estates. Green Ridge is located just east of the New Seasons on Boone Ferry, just kind of up the road, up the hill from behind the gas station there. Staff identified a hazard immediately, which was a malfunctioning washing machine on the second floor laundry room. This had basically charged the entire room with smoke, and smoke was starting to filter out into the hallway on the second floor. Staff immediately recognized that there was a hazard and started evacuation of all their residents. A little background of our response: when we get tapped out, we have less than 2 minutes to be geared up and out the door, and less than 8 minutes to be at any resident in the city. Westlake Fire Station, which is Station 210, is the one that services the Green Ridge area. From door to door, it's about a 5-minute, just less than 5-minute response. By the time our first arriving crew, that was the Westlake Station 210, arrived, the staff had evacuated all the residents from the building and had gone through and marked every door, every interior door on the residence and the offices with a large X. This made our jobs a lot easier, a lot safer, and a lot faster. By doing that, our crews could basically go in, identify and mitigate the hazard versus worrying about trying to evacuate everybody. It also meant less time for us in those IDLH or hazardous atmospheres. We were able to get in, do our job, and get out without any injuries. One thing I'd like to draw attention to is a quote by Lieutenant Langeliers. This was an email that he sent to our chiefs after the event, and I pulled this quote out of there. Lieutenant Langeliers is probably our most senior member of the fire department. He's been serving the city for over 30 years here. And he highlighted the importance of kind of what we're doing in that without the training that we had put in place, we were actually at the facility about 3 months prior doing an evacuation drill and kind of working through some of the questions that they had. Without that training already in place, and had this been a greater incident, we might have seen much less desirable outcomes. So that was really important. Equally as important, though, was what we learned from these incidents, not just the positives, but we also identified areas where we needed to grow. For us at Green Ridge, we saw gaps in accountability tracking once residents were outside. We identified that they had some confusion with the defined assembly areas, and then some communication challenges with the arriving crews. Rather than just noting those, we actually turned them into action. We went and we updated all the trainings that we're doing for all the care facilities across the city here, focusing a lot on that communication piece, encouraging them from the fire side. What we really need is somebody who can give us a clear, concise situation report. And so we updated that training. The other thing we did is we went and facilitated an after-action review with the staff at Green Ridge about a week after the fire, which gave them a platform to talk about, kind of what their mission was, what they felt went right, and some areas that they felt they could improve on. And then we improved the evacuation communication procedures, with everything that we learned. The point is it's not a static program. It's constantly adapting based on real-world performances. So what does this mean for Lake Oswego? By utilizing the tools that we've created, these after-action reviews like you see on the poster here, we are helping better prepare staff to make faster, more effective decisions. This results in safer residents within our care facilities, fewer preventable 911 calls, which equals to more available emergency resources for the true emergencies. We also worked with LOCOM and the facilities to identify bedbound and bariatric residents within each of the facilities to better assist crew decision-making and ensuring our resources are allocated appropriately. By highlighting these, now if a crew, this is just kind of a sample snapshot, but if a crew is to respond to the facility, our CAD system will show which rooms have residents who are either bedbound or bariatric or both. And in doing so, we can determine ahead of time how we need to allocate our resources appropriately. Do we need to send multiple crews to evacuate a couple rooms, or can we focus just on the task at hand? This is essentially community risk reduction in its most practical form, addressing problems before they become emergencies. So as we move into the next phase, the focus is on expanding and deepening the work that we've been doing. We want to provide more advanced scenario-based training. some full-scale exercises with other agency partners, similar to what we're going to be doing on May 7th, when we're going to do an evacuation at the Stafford, utilizing PD, fire department, EOC, and then want to continue data tracking to measure the impact. So now it's about applying those lessons more broadly. As you can see by the data in front of you, we went through and we did a pie chart of all the facilities, and we looked at the new 911 utilization in 2025. This kind of gave us an idea of which facilities we wanted to direct certain approaches at. We also created the 911 utilization report, which is essentially a report card for each of these facilities, so they can see, you know, have their patient counts and their transport counts increased. We can take a look at, you know, the number of calls and types of calls. For example, at the Springs, you know, 42% of their calls come from falls. This is looking at the entire facility, both independent memory care and assisted living. Our program focuses on just the licensed areas, but we wanted to look at the entire thing as a whole picture. And in doing so, we were able to, you know, reduce the falls inside of the licensed facilities or licensed areas. But then we could acknowledge that, you know, 42% of their calls last year came from falls. So now how do we go and how do we talk to the residents about increasing their safety within their own house, you know, whether that's improving lighting in the evening time, improving any sort of trip hazards, which are, you know, loose rugs, cords, anything like that, and then grab handles in like bathrooms and stuff like that. Now it's time to extend preparedness initiatives beyond just care facilities to vulnerable residents in private homes and those in the independent living side. We also want to integrate with our wildland urban interface safety efforts and expand community risk reduction through prevention-focused education. The approach is simple. We just want to take what we've proven works so far and adapt it for broader applications and focus on prevention first. With pre-event planning, drills, clear communication, and accountability, these aren't just for care homes. They actually work for any at-risk resident in Lake Oswego. So what this really comes down to, as mentioned, is risk management. With continued support of this program, we maintain a proactive approach, reducing risk before incidents occur, improving coordination, and continue to see the benefits like fewer low acuity calls, safer residents, and better prepared staff. When a fire starts in a facility, when a resident falls, when something goes wrong, the outcome is often decided before we even arrive. This program is about making sure those first few minutes go right. By utilizing the tools that we've built, the trainings that we've built, the community risk reduction cycle that you see on the screen in front of you, we've been able to move beyond a reactive response and demonstrate measurable progress in reducing low acuity calls, strengthening facility preparedness, and building more effective partnerships across the system. This grant is expiring at the end of this year, and we've been looking for and continue to explore ways that we can continue funding this program and providing the positive results it's had on our community. The foundation is built, we've proven the impact, and we're ready to scale, ensuring all of Lake Oswego's vulnerable residents are safer, better prepared, and supported by a system that works efficiently when they need it the most. So I want to thank you all for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, both of you. It's great. Good. Really good to hear the update on this program. Could you remind us so this was how long was the grant for?
The grant is a 2-year grant, which started January 1st of 2025 and will expire at the end of the year this year. I think it runs about a week into January, but all of the program information, all of our data, everything like that has to be submitted by the end of the year.
Okay. And then how will the termination of the grant kind of impact this work going forward?
So without the grant, without the funding from that grant, we kind of fall back into our previous model, which is, again, more of that reactive model. Facilities are still going to operate the way they always have, but eventually we're going to probably see a lot of those calls increase again, those low acuity calls, without having the coolest thing about my role is I get to be in these facilities every day. I get to talk to the directors. I get to talk with the staff. We get to do training. There's interaction. Without that relationship piece, we kind of fall back into what we've always done, which is we respond to every 911 call, and every 911 call kind of just comes in as facilities decide that they no longer are responsible for lifting their residents or anything like that. The other bigger portion of it is we go back to no longer having as large a preparedness within these facilities. Greenwich is a perfect example of training, showing areas where they could improve on, and then it happened relatively quickly, but only a few months later, they had a real incident and staff did amazing.
Yeah.
Without that constant outreach, we kind of lose a little bit of that.
Yeah, it's clearly very, impactful, the work that you're doing. Did the state have, did they have a broader goal in setting up this program? Like,
I think they did. When they set up the grant program, it came through fines and forfeitures from the facilities. And it was as a result of litigation that happened between the Oregon Healthcare Association, which is the legislative body for those facilities, and the city of McMinnville was essentially where it was. And as a result, they poured money in through fines and forfeitures for this program for a one-time ask. And they had millions of dollars in there, and they were only able to issue 4 grants out of that. It was a little bit tedious to go through the grant process because it was new to OHA and new to everybody that was involved. So I feel very fortunate that we were a selected group. Their main goal was to take the work that Nate and others might have done, show a benefit to it, and then try to push that benefit out through the rest of the state, because we're a unique environment here with the care that our folks take in the facilities, and with this grant program especially. There are other entities that are just struggling to try to figure out how to build for their services because it's a high utilization group. Right. So people want to turf it off onto somebody else, and that's not been our goal during any of this. It's to take care of the residents. So.
Have you, Nate, since you've been in the facilities, have you seen like some kind of systemic changes that you've been like, well, if long term, like I've always wondered why. It's a senior, they have seniors who are prone to these type of incidents, yet they seem, without this great assistance, wholly unprepared to handle the inevitable, essentially, which is odd. It'd be like a hospital calling the fire department and say, hey, we're having a medical emergency here. It's like, yeah, no kidding, right? That'd be crazy. So you wonder, like, well, how are they getting a license without, like, should this not be a part of their licensure that they're able to handle these types of common incidences? And it sounds like it's not.
We're the easy button.
Yeah, so have you seen some things like, well, gosh, like the kind of like aha moments as you've been in the facilities, like that perhaps we could help advocate for it?
Yeah, a lot of like Council President Wendland said is we are the easy button. We've been the easy button for the longest time. The other side of that is the OARs and everything, the rules that the facilities fall underneath are pretty vague. In some ways, like they have to have a emergency prevention or emergency evacuation plan in place that could be written down on a napkin. As long as they have a plan in place. So what we've been trying to do is kind of standardize a lot of those plans across the board. The other thing that we've identified is, on average, it's about a 200% annual turnover rate in staffing inside of these facilities. So everybody that we train on Monday is not going to be there in 2 weeks. So constantly going out and retraining, reevaluating, what they're doing, what we can help them with. That's been the biggest part of this. But yeah, I think the constant turnover rate and I don't want to use vagueness as the term, but kind of the loose parameters that these facilities have to kind of operate under. They have their rules, but the rules don't clearly define every aspect of how they need to run everything. So
it could be tighter.
It could be tighter. And that's kind of where this program comes in, and we're trying to create, like I said, more like accountability and more standardized forms that can be used across all facilities. And the state's looking at that then, that they can use them across all facilities across the state.
And OHA, they're the ones that license and inspect?
Yes.
Councilor Roy.
How much was the grant for?
$288,000
Total,
for
or
a 2-year period.
For 2
yes.
years? And is that the same amount that you would need to continue something like this? Or have you kind of figured out some different scenarios of how this could work to continue?
We'd need about a fully loaded, benefited firefighter at a step that Nate is at is about $190,000 a year. So we'd need that plus the equipment that might come with it. That there's things that you have to have. You have to have the Samson straps. You have to have publications. You have to have all kinds of things like that. So, but I think the 190 is a solid number.
Thank you.
Councilor Wendland.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, you're doing fabulous work, and I remember, I think you're giving credit. You just showed back to the one time before you started, and it was only 9 per month. I've seen graphs where, I mean, it's a lot more. So the work that you're doing is fabulous. One thing that, and I agree 100%, the turnover problem in care facilities is, I mean, you can go in there and have everybody trained, and then, you know, then you lose your culture because half the people turn over in a 6-month time frame. So the constant reminders are something that, and training is really important. With that said, though, I'm excited about, you said, to go into the individual sort of homes next. What's kind of the strategy on that? And I mean, you are one person, and we have, what is it, 60% of us are nearing the stage where we might need you? No, I'm just kidding. So how would we do that as a city?
Yeah, so right now, we're kind of confined by the parameters that the state has set out in the grants. My work really can only be in the assisted living, the memory care, and the skilled nursing licensed portions of any of the facilities. Outside of that, the state doesn't want me going out and doing outreach as far as the state's concerned. Where we see value is partnering with the fire marshal's office and working on different programs, doing like neighborhood, like a block party where we get together. We can get a whole neighborhood together and we can have them sign up for either Wildline or Interface or any of those other assessments. We can go in and we can partner, with the FMO's office and do stuff like that. A lot of what we've set up, like I said, a lot of the training, the accountability, the communication stuff, that works on a broader scale, not just within the facilities. Matt Amos, our fire marshal, and I have discussed a few times of different ways that we can kind of expand that out. But again, right now, because of the parameters that I have with the grant, I'm not able to really get outside of the license areas of the facilities.
I think we've also got ready-made audiences, whether it's at the ACC or whether it's neighborhood associations, or I was thinking when Meals on Wheels is here, we're not asking them what they need beyond a meal, right? When we deliver the meal. So there's room for growth in all of those, especially for the most vulnerable population.
Well, I think that ties in with the council goal of really trying to do, what do we say? Know everybody that's 4? No, what's it? What was the?
4 from the door.
4 from the door. 4 from the door. I mean, I think that's essential. I mean, we need to broaden this as far as a city with more help from just the fire department, but to incorporate that in, because that's where it's going to gain traction. And you can see the results once people know how to do things and they get some training, then it prevents a lot of resources from being misused, I would say, and keeps us ready to respond to things that we really have to respond to. So.
And we've been in partnership with the B2 Weeks Ready group. So a lot of what they do and what we do kind of overlap. And so keeping that partnership and keeping those lines of communication open, we can help each other and kind of guide each other where they're needed the most.
Mm-hmm. You have a booth at the Chamber is going, the Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring a health fair in August. I think we need to be out there front and center.
Yes, sir.
Because there's going to be a lot of people that will be possible residents of one of the 7 senior housing facilities, but also just they're out and about looking for what we do. So that could be a
Yeah.
good opportunity.
And we will be, this Sunday, we'll be out doing an emergency preparedness fair as well, with the book signing for the tilt and everything.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Great.
It's great. Counselor Corcoran?
First of all, I want to say the human value of what you're doing is huge. It's really, really hard to quantify, and I'm really impressed with the success you've had. It's remarkable. Thinking about not going out and picking up, what was it? You went from 8 to 1 lift assists. So I guess I'm trying to think about how we could fund this going forward, because obviously it's the right thing to do. I'm wondering if you could give us an idea about how much money we're saving with regard to fire department resources by not going out and picking up those other people because they're handling it in a more proactive, humane way. I mean, do we have any way, justification or understanding what this is doing for us so we could continue it?
I think it's a little tough to quantify. You've got, if we can, just in those 9 calls per month or 8 calls per month that we can reduce, we're saving 100 calls a year. And every time the wheels turn on a fire engine, it's wear and tear on an engine that's going to come back to you at some point for $1 million purchase. So if we can save money there, that's good. The human value is the part that I see is a real benefit. We're going to pay the firefighters to be there over a 24-hour cycle doing different things than this, but it's a matter of trying to quantify. The state is really interested in us trying to quantify the fewer trips to the hospital for these folks, less times returning to a hospital after being released, because that happens about 35% of the time. Somebody gets released from a hospital after a fall, they're back in the hospital within 2 weeks. And then Medicare doesn't kick in and it becomes a state's burden. So there's all kinds of things like that over time we and the other cities are starting to look at, the other grant cities, and OHA is looking to try to help us with that.
Great. One other question I have, it has to do with the expansion. So in my neighborhood, I have Hollyfield Village and Oak Ridge, and they have people of varying, as we go forward, is there a way that facilities like that would be able to be involved in this?
Outside of the grant, yes.
Yeah.
Outside of the ground, okay, great.
Yeah, once, if the city was to own this, then there's so much more expansion and so much more that we could do with our program. Right now, like I said, we just have such strict parameters with the way the grant is written.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Boop?
Yeah, no, I think you ask the questions, why people in those facilities are not trained. And, it's like child care, we do the same, I do the same work, but in a lower age. You need to have folks who know what they're doing, because otherwise every day you call 911. The kids, you learn every year there's like those training that sometimes you engage. And I think the city should have a budget where you go to those facilities and make those training. But those facilities also, they're private entities that should have money to pay for those training. Like no one can work in childcare if they don't have safe sleep, if they don't have CPR first aid with, infant and pediatrics. So I think they should have that, because, when there is an emergency, by the time you come, they should mitigate most of the things. So I agree, we should, it's our people. I am always for it. I never ask for where we get the money. We should have that. We have money to fight wars, we have money to, but when it comes to essential problem, where we get the money? We get the money where we get money to fight wars. We have to have someone there, whether, there's a war package. There 11 billion in 5 days of war in Iran. So I know what I'm talking about. So I support that the city, I don't know where we are going to get that money, but we should have, what you're doing should not stop. It has to continue. We have an aging population, and more we're going to have folks who need that every single year. So, but we also have maybe to talk to those facilities, either we can help them or, they have money also. They're for profit, most of them. They can train their people to know like the basics. So that's it. But thank you for your work. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Boop. Councilor Afghan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my colleagues have said what I wanted to say. The conclusion is the data speaks for itself. The grant has done its job, showing that such an effort makes a huge difference in what we're doing. And Chief, you and your team have definitely proven that by doing the coordination, by doing the collaboration, we can save lives. So from my point of view, my colleagues said it, this is a program that we will need to take forward, and how we make that happen, it will go through the budget cycle, and I don't think you heard any opposition to this, so Godspeed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councilor Afghan. I think it would be, as we go forward, it would be helpful to frame, like we seem to have we have, some different, there's some kind of different elements here. So Councilor Corrigan brought up, Hollyfield Village and Oak Ridge Senior Living, not care facilities, but low-income residential facilities. I don't think they're licensed at all. And I know that there was trouble actually during the storm because there was very low preparedness and the residents were just like stuck, with no medicine or food. And so that was concerning. And so there's like the need there. We're like, well, yeah, here's a housing development run by a nonprofit, versus a private equity owned care facility that's charging residents, many thousands of dollars per month, and then unable to provide even the basics. So, it's like, they seem like two different things to me. So on one hand, maybe there's work we can do or at least advocate for at the state level to make sure we're not subsidizing large corporations and doing what they should be doing themselves, while at the same time directing our limited resources to vulnerable residents who are not under the care of large corporation, who could benefit from that work as well. So then and then some of the emergency preparedness work versus the fall prevention and stuff. So maybe we can kind of break it out into what a work plan might look like and what we can do to reduce, I think, that subsidy, because that's probably what sits uneasy with some of us is, subsidizing that.
I agree. Well, they should be, but it's one of those things where it's self-prevention for our self-survival. A lot of people should be doing things, and I totally get it. Some of our care facilities, though, are running on very few resources because a lot of seniors are on Medicaid, and there's a lot of people that can't afford places to stay. And so there is that, even though they may be for private, it's not necessarily always, they can't just charge what they want on some of the facilities. And like Oswego, we're a little different with some of our facilities, but we also have to recognize that there's a lot of seniors that have little money that are in some of our facilities that are subsidized already. So I think my angle, and I agree with you, I don't really want to be subsidizing private enterprises, but I also think it's self-preservation to a certain extent. The more we can train and the more we can get people up to speed, it helps us overall. I mean, it's just like training, just like when you get a moving citation, it's a training The whole idea is to train you so that you're safe.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think we just need to see the breakout, because we're talking about kind of an array of different things here, and I don't want to put it all in the same bucket, you know? We're talking about different kinds of facilities, and we're talking about different kinds of services. So as we're going forward, instead of just saying, we're going to keep doing the same thing we've been doing with this grant, because the grant is very specific to this. And when I'm hearing comments around the dais are like, there is kind of a need to expand the work, and then it would be great for us to have an advocacy agenda so that we can work on making some of these facilities a little more self-sustaining. Because otherwise, we're hearing with the turnover that it's like, it will just go back to the way it was. You know, that's a waste of money. That's not, you know, it's just, we want to be sustainable in what we're doing. Does that sound like a good plan? Or agree?
Yeah,
Okay.
good plan.
Good plan.
Well, thank you very much for the update. Thank you for the good work. This is very valuable, and we appreciate the outreach and the work that you're doing within the community. Nate, thank you. And Chief, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you both. Okay. Next, we are going to hear about the visioning and guiding principles on the Foothills District Plan, and we have our long-range planning manager, Mr. Eric Olson. Of course, our friends, First 40 Feet. Okay, great. Our wonderful consultant on this project. We're very excited to have this update. It's great to have you both here.
Thank you, Mayor Buck and City Council. We're excited to be here and to be able to talk with you all about this. Right now, Laurel is handing out some instructions on how to use this system called Mentimeter that we're hoping to deploy with you all today. Essentially, this is similar to systems we've used with you all in the past, where we've asked for you to provide input using your mobile phones. I think would be the easiest way for you to do this today. So essentially, there's a QR code on those instructions, and if you go ahead and you point your camera at that and scan that QR code, you should be able to get into the system and follow along, answer the questions along with us. So just wanted to preface things with that, and there's also a code on those instructions so that you can hopefully access the presentation even if the QR code does not work for you. So I'll give you a few moments to get acquainted with that here, and hopefully that goes all right.
I see the emojis are already rising, so it's working.
Yeah, why is mine's purple? Bruised.
And you shouldn't see too much on your screen right now, so we'll have you follow along with the presentation for the most part on your screens, but we will be asking you questions intermittently that we'll ask you to answer on the phone. But with that being said, I will just go ahead and start with our introduction here. So we're here tonight, obviously, as you mentioned, Mayor Buck, to talk about the overarching vision and guiding principles related to the Foothills District Plan update. As I'm sure you're all aware, this relates to the Council's 2026 initiative to update the Foothills District Plan or continue that update. We last spoke to you all back in January with an overview of existing conditions in the area and an analysis of opportunities and constraints associated with that. We use that work as a baseline and have since begun to transition into a discussion of what folks hope to see in the area in the future for the Foothills District. So we're here to, one, present the results of some of the engagement that we've conducted out in the community since that last study session with you all, and to get feedback really more directly from you all on the draft vision and guiding principles that we developed based on those conversations. A quick note, though the Foothills neighborhood is about 120 acres in total, really we're talking about roughly 16 acres of developable area. So just some context really for you all to keep in mind that though we'll be thinking about expanding that area, of course, to include some sites in downtown, we're really thinking about a pretty small scale area when we're talking about actual development potential. So just wanted to let folks know that, there's some realistic conversations we're going to have further down the line involving the actual amount of tax increment we'll get from a potential urban renewal district in this area, and the limitation of just the size of the district in total and what we'll be able to generate is going to be real. So with that said, I guess we can move forward. So of course, good afternoon to you all today, and I'm joined here with our consultants at First 40 Feet.
Hello, yes, Jason Graff, Project Manager for First 40 Feet for the Foothills District. Excited to be here in front of you all today. Excited to talk a bit about the vision and guiding principles, so thank you very much.
So Jason will be doing the bulk of the presentation, but I'll go over a few slides with you before then. Just really quickly, we're hoping to cover a summary of project progress and the public engagement that we've done in the last few months. Specifically, we wanted to share with you the outcomes of the visioning exercises we've done with the Community Advisory Committee that was established for this process. We wanted to present the results of that discussion, that draft vision statement and guiding principles, and get your feelings on that, see if you're comfortable moving forward with that or if you have any specific input before we move on to the next phase of the project. And we want to check in on the overall project schedule. As you can see, right now we're in April, as you all are, I'm sure, very well aware, but you can see that's at the end of the opportunities and challenges phase of the project. So really trying to transition from this visioning conversation into some actual concepts, hopefully sometime soon, actually starting as soon as next month. So we'll be back here in May talking with you all about some initial concepts, but really wanted to talk about the vision, of course, with you first. And this is kind of the end of that larger process where we've been talking with the community about that for several months now. As you can see also, we intend to bring a final plan to you for consideration for adoption early next year in early 2027, probably looking a little bit further away from January, but that's our target is January 2027. Next slide. And just wanted to give an overview, not go into too much detail here, but just to talk a little bit about what we've been doing for the last several months in terms of public engagement and the progress we've made on that. One of the biggest elements I think that we've deployed so far is a story map. It's an interactive mapping interface website that we've been able to utilize and we intend to update on an ongoing basis that has presented the existing conditions and opportunities and constraints, results of that work, and actually has a lot of questions for folks in the community to answer as they work through that information. And we've gotten about 50 responses to date of folks that were able to interact with that work and provide their responses. Of course, we've done a lot of in-person engagement as well. We had an open house in February, late February, at the Adult Community Center. We've had Community Advisory Committee meetings, 2 dedicated to visioning alone, 1 meeting of the Technical Advisory Committee earlier this month. We had a number of meetings with folks in the communities, youth groups, specifically Youth Action Councils, a group put together by the Parks Department and residents nearby, as well as a Planning Commission work session in January. And we also intend to go back to the Planning Commission next Monday on April 27th to have a similar discussion with them about vision and guiding principles. So we've done quite a bit, and we provided summaries of that stakeholder engagement in the packet for this meeting. So I don't want to get into too much detail there. We will talk about the results of that visioning discussion with the CAC. With that, I will hand it over to Jason for the most of the rest of the presentation here. Thank you.
Sure. Are there any questions before we get started? Just about any of the engagement. I'd love to, if there's something you want to comment on. Great. I'll go ahead and get started. The Citizens Advisory Committee visioning was really a process of sort of exploring vision, which is the aspirations for the district. Like what does it want to be? The guiding principles get into sort of the core ideas that can shape the design of streets and policies and regulations that help define the content and makeup of the district. So it's really important to know sort of where your starting point is, what are you aspiring to, and what are sort of the core elements and values that you want to apply to the building of this new neighborhood. So that's the sort of the value of having a vision and guiding principles. So we went through 2 meetings with the CAC. We went through an exercise of identifying the vision, looking at 2012 as the base point, but also thinking about the objectives that this council has applied to this update of the district. So we're distilling that original information. We've also rolled in information that we've learned from community engagement in terms of where the community sits today in terms of what the foothills might be. Some of those opinions have changed a bit from 2012. Some of them have stayed exactly the same, but they all inform the update to the vision and essentially a refinement of that piece. So we come to you today with that vision statement. So we've done some filtering, done some exploration. We want to share that with you. And then we've established 6 guiding principles. Those also are building off of the 2012 plan, but they are unique to the condition where we are today. And so as we develop the visioning, what we heard in terms of core values in the community is that the waterfront absolutely needs to continue to be public facing. It is a Lake Oswego amenity, and it should be open and accessible to the entire community. Extremely important. That space between the waterfront and downtown is still envisioned as the next great neighborhood. So that was a carryover from 2012. That was the vision back then. And obviously, there's a goal here to balance livability with economic vitality. Bringing in new development is important for the tax base, but certainly the quality of life that people live here, access to the river is really important. Access for those new residents to downtown, the waterfront, is also extremely important. So while we want to bring in economic development, we do want to create a high quality of life. And then I think that last piece about distinctly Lake Oswego goes into the exploration that you've all been going through as you've redeveloped First Street over the years and how that's changed the character and form of downtown. But you've been really attuned to creating a style and shape and form and density that feels right for Lake Oswego. So we've been asked to continue to be thoughtful in that process as we move forward. The non-negotiables, and these are great. We kind of want to know what the community says. These are must-haves. As we advance into the future, we must have public access to the riverfront. We must have public access to Foothills Park. And as we know, some of that access will extend between Foothills and Rogers Park, which is amazing. And maybe future connections across Tryon Creek can begin to extend to other open space areas in the community. So that connection to nature then is an obvious, another non-negotiable that extends off not just the park itself. So as we begin to expand into other areas outside the district, high quality design, I think that's pretty obvious. And then community benefit needs to be central to this project, given that Foothills Park is such a key component of the district. And then what we heard from an identity standpoint, this blending of nature and urban life is an important thing. You all have a tremendous tree canopy in the community. We did a study earlier that 53% of the community here is covered by trees, and this is a void in that canopy for portions of the district. So this is an opportunity to reclaim that and blend that nature and urban life together. Balancing activity and calm, I think we're all a little bit stressed about what the future might bring in terms of additional people, additional traffic. Those are some of the trade-offs that come with development, but by preserving your great assets and making sure that the ways you get to the district provide options and choice are one way to help balance, not just auto-centric, but how do we walk, how do we bike, and how do we get to surfaces that are close to where we live. Memorable and authentic character, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to finally connect downtown to the waterfront in a more direct way. And I think that's the great opportunity and one of the biggest challenges for all of us in the project. And then finally, not over-commercialized. Obviously, we're not trying to bring in a whole slew of chains and national identities that really don't represent this community. This is an opportunity to bring housing into the district. It's an opportunity for some additional business development near the waterfront. So we should take advantage of that as a real opportunity. And then the trade-offs, obviously people are trying to balance with growth and change. How can we create access and continue to have public space that works for the community? So we'll explore that. We know that new people are going to come in. The neighborhood's going to have the benefit of being in proximity to the waterfront and the park and the downtown. It's going to be really amazing. Another option, another element that's important is thinking about affordability. And we know that's important to you all as council in terms of housing affordability, and being able to provide those options in the district will be something that we need to weigh into. So there's the economics, but there's the quality of life associated with that. And then, concerns of congestion and loss of character, those are things that we need to manage through the design, but those are trade-offs inevitable to any redevelopment plan. So I'll pause for a moment. I'm not going to read this out loud, but this is a chance for you all to look at the vision statement. So the first paragraph is kind of the core of that, and then it sort of breaks down some of the component parts into the next paragraph.
I mean, I can go ahead and at least read the vision statement here for you all while you're digging through there. So just I'll start. The Foothills District is Lake Oswego's greatest opportunity to provide the community with a significant riverfront presence. Building upon the recent success of downtown Lake Oswego, the district will redevelop in a manner that knits downtown, Tryon Creek, Old Town, the Willamette River, and Oswego Lake together, and in the process will establish Lake Oswego's next great residential neighborhood. The Foothills District will become a welcoming, inclusive neighborhood that strengthens the existing community and deepens Lake Oswego's connection to the Willamette River through clear multimodal access, vibrant public spaces, restored natural systems, and a diverse range of housing options that support community life for all. Guided by the site's topography, its downtown context, and a commitment to long-term adaptability, future development in Foothills will be rooted in sustainability, honoring the land, history, and stories of Lake Oswego while embracing new residents, cultures, and futures. A lot in there, but I think hopefully we captured at least what we heard from the CAC, and I will just reiterate that we are going to go back and sort of confirm this with the CAC. So, the CAC has yet to formally sign off on anything. I don't want to give the impression that they've adopted this officially. So we are going to go back and make sure we're on the right track with them at a third meeting on May 12th.
So we're going to lead into a couple of questions, like, generally, do you support this statement? It may be that you support the statement, but you may have some conditions that you think are important to consider, or there may be some aspects that you think just aren't important in here, and that's generally kind of the next phase that we'll go through here. We've created an opportunity to sort of weigh in on that, yes with conditions, or no, and of course we can go back to the statement if you'd like to look at that.
All right, so that's good news. 3 of you supported it just right off the bat, but 3 of you supported it with conditions. So I guess now is the time when we'd ask you to indicate which conditions would be necessary to gain your support. And this would be an open-ended response within Mentimeter that you'd be able to provide, and it'll come up on the screen. We'll discuss afterwards as well, so we won't just leave it at the screen. All right, so I'll just start reading these, I guess, while folks are still answering. One of the conditions would be to better define multimodal. We can talk about that maybe in a moment. Another one was the aesthetic from the top of the hill looking down at Foothills. Another condition is that neighborhood implies exclusive residential, which may be in conflict with other aspects. I guess, I just ask folks if you are done with the vision statement, perhaps not dreamy enough. I like that. And then somebody else said no conditions, which I guess is good news. Maybe a stronger indication about pedestrian access between downtown and Foothills. I feel like I have more questions about some of these than others, so maybe if it's okay, maybe I can ask about particularly the one about defining multimodal. I don't know if anybody wants to talk about that or would like to indicate, whether there's anywhere they wanted to take that in particular.
Well, I put it on there. I think in this room, we know what multimodal sort of means, but I think outside of this room, multimodal could mean a tram, a train. There's a lot of noise when we did this last time in 2012 about bus services versus MAX versus, you know, what are we going to do with the things? So when you say multimodal, sometimes that can define. When I read through your packet, it was really about pedestrian and bike mostly. And so, and it's how big? 16 acres? I mean, it's not exactly a place where we're going to have, you know, laps around in a car. But I think that's why I'm saying, just from an outside viewpoint, when you say multimodal, it could mean all kinds of things, and people, I think, need to have the right expectations that, like, TriMet is not going to all of a sudden add a line here. We just found out that they're cutting all the lines out of Lake Oswego. So I guess that's kind of the, if you could define that a little bit more. I love the idea that it's a pedestrian sort of free walkway area where you can walk around and not get hit by a car. I mean, that's kind of the, or zoom through on your bicycle as you're going down the connected trailways. I think everybody resonates with those, but I'm not sure if that's kind of the flavor I got out of the reporting part and the details. I don't, if that could be a little bit more, I don't know, defined.
Agreed, and maybe it lacks a little bit of clarity, because I think the reality of this is we're not creating a regional destination or pass-through here through major infrastructure that releases that type of modal. We're really talking about the connection between the waterfront, the core of this district, and the downtown. And that is typically within a 5-minute walk, 5-minute bike ride. Now, State Street is a regional connection that will come through, and it is a conduit that can bring other transportation options. But I think fundamentally, we're really talking about walking, biking, and sort of local traffic in and out of the district, because the park is an asset to the community. So maybe we should work a little bit harder to kind of clarify that. You're also going to see in the guiding principles a little more detail around some of these sort of aspirational conditions. Neighborhood, what does that mean? Do we talk about a mix of uses and those types of things? And they do show up in the guiding principles. So I think it's good to call out what you're not seeing here. We may end up seeing it in that other part and then be able to sort of be comfortable with where we are at the statement, or come back and adjust it as you see fit. So this is perfect. This is exactly what we're asking of you all, is to indicate the things that we think might need to change, and that gives us an opportunity to adjust that and then share that with the CAC. Great. I'm going to move on to the next one.
Yeah, I guess, is there anybody else that wanted to comment, I guess, on any of the things that you indicated as a condition, or just more generally, is there anything else that you wanted to say about this vision statement?
Like, gotcha. Or I appreciate that.
Councilor Afghan has a comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You're going to have some kind of a view from the top of the hill down at the foothills. And what we don't want to see is a whole lot of buildings with rooftop mechanical units, and that aesthetic of that area all being mechanical systems, as opposed to green roofs, rooftops, the things that would add to the river view, as opposed to all of a sudden a bunch of mechanical systems. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think the quality of the view to the river is important. A lot of that is obstructed today, so
Yeah.
especially at A Street, so we don't have any view at all. I think we've made note of that, and I think trying to integrate that in here in this location or the guiding principles is important. I think you maybe hit on something that we haven't touched on, so thank you.
Yeah, and the multimodal that we were talking about, this was also on my list, but Councilor Wetland beat me to it. Things that maybe not dreamy enough, maybe it is, but we're not seeing it just yet. Like, we need to increase the capability of people enjoying that walk or that river from downtown. So things like Oregon City has the elevators going up and down in the middle of their downtown, making it easy for people to go up and down the hill. Is that something we may be interested? Definitely not a zip line, but things like elevators. Thank you.
You say definitely not a zip line, but that's the first time I've heard that brought up, so it's hard to
I don't
just
know.
ignore that, you know?
You may have
I mean,
something.
from Millennium Plaza right over State Street, it sounds really fun, so, thank you.
Well, I don't think he has to worry about the roof line because they're like 25-story buildings, so you won't see the roof. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Wow, it's a dreaming, you know?
We want to, in creating foothills, we don't want to we can't just duplicate downtown, right? So it's nice that we're trying to, I know we're trying to knit it together physically, but we also have to kind of tie it together in a complementary way structurally and kind of from the land use as well. And so I don't know what it's like, what's going to, what's going to bring people down here? It can't just be like we're expanding downtown basically, because we don't want to take existing downtown and just make it, because that's not going to work. That will just dilute activity in the downtown. So it's like, what's the draw? What's the draw? Is that it does have to be, it has to bring people in. Otherwise it doesn't work.
I mean, the district has two edges. State Street is still a viable edge, and that, commercial development there is viable because it's got drive-by traffic, it has access to other businesses, and so that edge will, I think, continue to have a strong commercial component. I think the riverfront can have some aspect of commercial development because as a destination and being close to the park, that would be attractive for a certain type of development. Exactly. Creating the scale of retail that you see on First Avenue or First Street is not probably in the cards here. Partially is because that connection, the most valuable connection for expansion of retail and commercial, would be directly from A and B. Right. And due to the rail line and due to topography, it's nearly impossible for that to happen. And any gaps in the retail string create law of diminishing returns as you separate a core over here from a core over there, and you lose customer base inevitably by going through that configuration. So if we can cluster a little bit to States, good deal. Likely in between is going to continue to be more neighborhood scale. Yes. Think Curly Q Trail, those things that are some of the calming aspects of the district, and maybe some of the activity is a little more on the edges where there's already access to activity today.
And that is the kind of unique, it's the river.
The active recreational component.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even some retail that supports like that recreation, that's unique to that area.
Yeah, you can't get ice cream and just go right on the riverfront and hang out and put your toes in the water necessarily right downtown. So I guess that would be the unique, different draw potentially, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's great.
Can I ask a question? So so we've had a conversation at council level about this being a definite chance to add capacity to our housing. I mean, a major part. It seemed to be that the survey and focus groups were more about recreation and more parkland and whatever. So, I mean, just after I read through whatever, 192 pages or whatever of your report, there's a lot of community input that they really want a bigger foothills park. They want, and they want all this recreation land and all the type of thing. And I don't know where we're at on how to define that to make sure that we meet some housing goals that I think are important for Lake Oswego. But does that change that
It doesn't, typically the park comes up when you say, hey, what's your most exciting thing about that the district is going to offer in the future? Housing certainly came up a number of times in a variety of different groups across the spectrum. In our initial survey that just took a core group of Lake Oswegans and sort of determined what their vision is and what the need is. There's also the objectives of this project, which is to identify housing opportunities in the district. So clearly that's one, and the community understands that that is an upfront objective of this project. So as much as there'll be improvements to the park, we know that the core of the redevelopment is really leaning toward those housing options and opportunities in the district. So
Okay.
we're not losing that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reticence you might be seeing in the comments is, let's not privatize the river. Let's not put so much high-end housing in there that it becomes sort of, somebody's backyard and people feel uncomfortable going and recreating in that area. I think that was kind of the concerns that were surfacing to a degree. I mean, we heard a lot of different perspectives, of course, so I don't want to oversimplify. But that was some of the sort of dynamic of that conversation. And of course, we're talking about the Parks Plan 2040 when, they're talking about expanding Foothills Park to the north too. So, we're including that in our discussions as well as potential things that can happen in the district, and folks are, I think, encouraged by that and sort of adding on to that discussion.
So do you think you have to define what housing we're looking at? I mean, we're looking more at multifamily housing, correct?
Yes, we're looking
We're
at
not-
multifamily housing,
that we would
correct,
not
not
say-
single family.
Right. And I think that needs to be kind of defined or whatever said somewhere along the way.
Yeah, maybe we should move into the guiding principles, because I think that's going to help sort of daylight some things that we can't get it all in one statement. It's really hard as much as we want to. We really tried to work hard to get it even simpler if we could just get it to a couple sentences, but you know how hard that is. And
It's hard.
We're all sensing it right now in this conversation. It's the exact same thing we went through with the Citizen Advisory Committee as well. So it took us a while to get through that. We didn't see any, I think, no's in terms of, so I'm going to move past that and go, yay, we didn't have a no. Of the 6 guiding principles, you'll see those here. So now we're getting to kind of some of the specifics. What do we mean by multimodal? And here, creating a walkable, mixed-use waterfront district. That's also getting a bit too, it sounded like we were really neighborhood housing focused in that vision statement. And we're clarifying in the guiding principles about, I think, to Rachel's point, that we're being kind of pedestrian predominant here by making that statement very clear. That we're trying to balance development with the natural river environment, not only the Willamette River, but Tryon Creek, which is another great asset just to the north of the district. And then supporting this inclusive, that gets a bit to the housing options and opportunities that might be available in future development. And of course, economically, vital community. This is a great opportunity. This is a desirable site close to the river, and the economics are going to be playing a major factor in that. At the same time, it gives us an opportunity, because there's so much land there, to also consider a variety of housing types. So that gets into the inclusive part. The other inclusive part is, don't allow the neighborhood to be so exclusive that the public doesn't have that free access to the waterfront that they've enjoyed for so long. So we'll keep that whole as well. And then integrating sustainability and ecology and climate resilience are really important. This project is also a major infrastructure investment in your wastewater treatment plant. Absolutely necessary for the sustainability of the community, sustainability of the district. And that transfer from Portland to Lake Oswego is a pretty heavy burden to have to bear. Build that facility and run that long term. So that's really important from that aspect. We know Tryon Creek and the river are extremely important amenities next to the river. Flooding is a component of that. So climate resilience around how do we create a development area that's not in the flood zone is also important. At the same time, protecting the Tryon Creek watershed, making sure that cut and fill is balanced so that if there is flooding, it can do that appropriately and in the right way, and to serve those natural systems. Fish habitat may be another option that we can consider if Terwilliger becomes an intersection that we think is important, because fish passage, right now you've got extremely healthy trout community coming up and down Tryon Creek, but the lamprey, eel, and salmon would love to come up here. 10 years ago, we're circling around and just can't get through. There is a project to construct a fish culvert, but that is in limbo because there's a lack of leadership in that position. So I think that's something we want to explore from this sustainability, ecology, and climate resilience. I'm getting into a little detail, sorry about that, but I just wanted to touch on these principles slightly as we go into the key statements around them. And then finally, plan for adaptability over time. Phasing is going to be essential. We've got an urban renewal area that's may or may not have a ton of increment in the first few years. So it's going to be like kind of quick and nimble in terms of where initial development might happen, sort of the low-hanging fruit areas. The biggest question will be, after the wastewater treatment plant is up and running and functioning, is where is that second point of access into the district? That's going to be critically important because that will either open up more opportunities for development or will hinder it from the beginning, where if we're stuck to one way in and out, then the development capacity will hinge on that limited aspect. Doesn't mean that we're going to be building that second entry in the near term. That may be 10, 15 years. We don't know. And likely, because there's a lot of other things that need to come into play before that becomes a reality. But that initial investment will set the stage then to look at that second point of access into the district. So that one's going to be pretty challenging. So adaptability, we know, is going to be long-term as a part of this project. And as we know, as time extends, sort of how the plan evolves can change. New partners, new way of financing, new opportunities, markets, and other things. So there'll be a high level of adaptability. All to say that the plan creates a framework, but it's going to change over time. So we should all be sort of calm enough that I think we've got the right bones to get things started, knowing that they will shift and change over time. So let's talk about a couple of the guiding principles. The first two, creating a walkable mixed-use district. Human scale is really important as we think about that. You see housing as a key component of that statement. The civic spaces relate to not only the waterfront park, but that connection in between, because if it's a great walkway or a great trail, I think we can think about that as connective tissue between the downtown and the waterfront, and these public spaces that serve either residences or additional activity in the parks. I think that's going to be a key component of that human scale. Civic spaces, housing, recreation is already a part of the waterfront today. And then local business creation. We've talked a little bit where maybe that could occur, I think, on either end of the district, closer to State Street or maybe a little bit near the waterfront. So then balancing development with the natural river environment. I think I've touched on a lot of that, so I'll pause for a moment while you kind of review these two statements. You can still hopefully read that, those statements 1 and 2 on the right. But again, we're curious how well this is resonating.
All right, similar breakdown, 3 and 3, 3 support it outright and 3 support it with conditions. So for those that supported it with conditions, which are those conditions that would lead to you supporting the guiding principles 1 and 2? And if you just want to talk about one principle and not the other, that's fine. Just try to specify that.
Well, can I ask, where do we tie in So in guiding principle number 1, is it in a different guiding, I'm thinking of the guiding principles, but how do we talk about how the waterfront interacts economically with the rest of the downtown? Is that in this guiding principle 1? Should it be?
Why don't you note that? I mean, I think if it doesn't show up somewhere else, because I can't say specifically that it does.
That's kind
you
of
feel
my
it's an
heartache
important-
over 1, is that it's just standalone. But you know,
Doesn't talk about the dynamic between
doesn't talk
the waterfront and
exactly.
downtown. Okay.
exactly.
It's connected, you're saying?
Well, yeah, not just physically connected, but again, it comes to issues. We don't want to just duplicate the downtown. I mean, I think Jason did a good job articulating, you know, you put these pockets down, you're just splitting demand. And we need to create either new demand or find a way for these spaces to kind of integrate with one another.
It's likely that grand connection will be that's the scene
critical thing.
that connects from downtown to the waterfront. We'll be looking at that sort of linear amenity. This is a really good strategy. Quite often waterfronts get developed along the edge, right? And because they capture, they create that wall, and the value is limited to those buildings along that frontage.
Right.
If you bring the green corridors in, not only visually, I'm connected from downtown to the water, but I'm creating amenities in that right-of-way, that space between the buildings. I've suddenly now created buildings that have great waterfront value and these internal properties because they're focused on this grand connection and this promenade or tree canopied space. Now those also have ancillary value that increases above just being out back behind the big wall of buildings that capture the view along the waterfront. That's always been, I think, preeminent even in 2012 because the A corridors and the B corridors were intended to extend through the district. The wastewater treatment plant is going to sort of change that dynamic a bit because that's part of the B corridor. But the goal will be to create that sort of water to downtown connection that becomes an amenity for development as much as the waterfront.
Yeah, just a quick summary here. Folks are saying that we should note that, I guess just to summarize what Mayor Buck had indicated just a moment ago, that we should indicate that the sort of economic and commercial areas in Foothills should be complementary to downtown and not necessarily just an expansion of downtown. Somebody noted that small town character may be too constricting and should be defined, and maybe just it's too constricting. Maybe we should be a little bit more general for this purpose, but there's one that says aesthetic and sustainability ads, so I guess it's a suggestion to add more about the aesthetic character of this district and sustainability of this district, but it's a question, I guess, so just trying to summarize these for conversation, for comments later, and also the note that we've already talked about a little bit is that need to draw pedestrians down to the water and have that connecting aspect, that sort of grand axis, if you will, that brings people to the water from downtown. Any comments to support these? Am I completely missing what you're trying to convey here? Anything that I've mischaracterized?
I just want to say it's not, I think there's a risk of kind of creating even two sections within the Foothills district. It's like you kind of have the edges and then all of a sudden you have this middle. So that's what I'm saying. We really need to bring them through that. It can't just kind of be, I'm not sure what that is, but we can't suddenly have like this neighborhood in the middle because that's going to block. So again, it's not just like across State Street and down a few steps. It's really bringing them all the way.
All the way through. And I think that connective tissue is where we have a gap. I think that's what we've been talking about. So I think integrating that into these statements help organize where development's going to go. And it clearly is articulating that space then connects downtown through to the waterfront where the neighborhood is not an obstruction to that public amenity.
If we ever get the Frog Ferry, again, we want the people who come in through there to be able to go up
Right into town, yeah. It
really
should be.
easily. And one comment maybe, and I don't know who said the small town character might be too constricting. I think maybe what some people are concerned about is that we don't look cookie cutter to every other area. So maybe when we start and again, I don't want to speak to whoever said that, but I think we all kind of, when we say small town, it's because we don't suddenly want to be like everybody else. We want to keep our, we want to be unique to our area. So as we're maybe looking at defining that, maybe, and again, I don't want to speak for anyone who said, yes, we want small town, but, you know, maybe thinking it more in terms of, you know, we want to be unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great waterfront neighborhood and destination, yeah.
Now, just add to what you're saying, it sounds like there's an aesthetic component to the connection even. It's not just
Oh,
the commercial and sort of
absolutely.
active, what uses are there, but there's, you know, there's the visual component
I mean,
there
I
too.
think visual, we know buildings and architecture and, you know, nature, they create a feeling and they can draw you. So we should not underestimate what that is and what feeling do we want this to have. And so, and I think we already have we kind of know what Lake Oswego means to a lot of people, and we need to make sure to bring those general concepts to this area.
That's helpful, thank you.
Well, so I made the small town character comment. I guess when we did the Windward, I mean, people thought we were building a 40-story building that was going to mass out, and there was going to be huge traffic problems and everything else. And in reality, after it was built and things kind of settled down, I mean, people go, oh my gosh, how could we live without it? I mean, we have to go get ice cream. But I think the big picture is that when you say small town character, I see like a little village, 1 or 2 story little buildings, you know, kind of walking around like an alpine village sort of, you know, ski resort sort of. And I had, you know, while I'm not saying this is where I'm standing, I do think we need some mass down there in order to get some housing in there. And it's going to be Windward on steroids. And so there is that aspect of
Contradiction
At the people that are reading this are going to go, oh yeah, small town character. So just little cottages, like the little cottages over on First Street or on First and E. Those little cluster cottages. People might think, oh yeah, just build a whole bunch of those. That would keep us in a small town character versus 4-story, or maybe even we could get height variances because it's down low, a 5 or 6-story building that can actually be really cool to live in and interact with all the stuff that's going on in the park. So that's where the dreamy part and that makes sense.
Well, and this presents it like it's like these things are in conflict somehow. Honestly, I think you could just take off the last part. I don't see how ensuring new development, respecting the river, the creek, the canopy, why would that be in conflict with
All consistent with the character, right? Yeah.
It seems consistent with, you know,
Yeah.
consistent with like, but I think you could just, because Councilor Windland's right, you know, to achieve the public amenities, the park-like feel and everything we want. I mean, the trade-off there is, you know, you're going to have to make the development dense to pay for it. So
Part of the trade-offs, yes.
yeah,
We don't want to necessarily mislead with any of the phrasing here either, so.
Right.
But that can also be done, I mean, you can do it with height, but it's, again, the whole feeling of a building, you could make it feel really massive and big, or, I mean, you could still have a 6-story building that doesn't quite be as intrusive. So I think, to me,
Been
that's.
scaled potentially, we tried to capture
Yeah,
that.
really.
Yeah, so I think it's maybe getting some clarity, because I do think it's important to Councilor Wendland's point. We don't want people to think that, oh, we're going to have a bunch of 1 or 2-story, even maybe 3. It's like, it is an area that I think we're going to need density. We'll know how much density it can take once we know access points and different things, because that's also going to dictate what's safe to, you know, from a safety perspective, what can we get down there?
That's a good comment. I
so-
think the small town is one we should revisit. I think it's going to be hard as we evaluate things down the road, that becomes a litmus test that's limiting in a respect, and I think it isn't necessarily characteristic of development in the last 15 years, let's say, in downtown, and certainly where housing and commercial have come together. Doesn't feel like small town, so. Appreciate that. Thank you.
But I think we can also make it clear that we're not talking 15-story buildings too.
Right, exactly.
So,
Talking South
let people
Waterfront.
kind of know that
Yes, there-
expectation of it could be approximate, a generalization.
Well, I mean, there's the whole wood construction now. I mean, wouldn't it be cool if we were one of the communities to have one of those wood, 5-story wood construction residential building? I mean, something unique and very environmentally climate, I mean, the whole thing, it kind of expands
Right.
into that thing. Yeah, that's unique and so I don't, that's when I put the may not be dreamy enough. I mean, those are kind of some of the things that I'm looking at of going, hey, this is an opportunity to really, and then I don't know if this is the right time to say this or not, but do we know from have we talked to the development community or to builders and the business community to say what kind of, what would actually sell? I mean, we can dream all we want and say what we want to have there, but somebody has to write the check and it's not going to be us.
Sure.
So I don't know if there's that counterbalance that we know kind of what, if somebody's, one of the big developers says, hey, this would be a perfect place for X. I don't know what that X is.
Yeah, we've been having some of those conversations, just initially talking about perceptions about the district if it were open up for redevelopment. So a couple of things play into that. One is what's sort of marketable and accessible today. And quite often you'll see that that is not at the intensity or doesn't offer the product that aspirationally you want to be able to encourage into the district. It might work as an interim development opportunity, but likely the goal here is to build infrastructure that changes the economics, that changes how we envision the districts in terms of the potential for development. Because that's the other part of the coin. What are you stimulating with the plan? What infrastructure are you putting in place to make this more attractive for A, B, and C versus just A? So I think there's we got to keep the door open, knowing that sure, developers are looking for this 5-year window, but we may see greater opportunity over time, or the urban renewal district can help fund or leverage types of development that maybe initially weren't achievable, but will be in the future. So we're looking at both. We definitely want to see where there's low-hanging fruit, knowing that if we build value, we can likely strive for other things down the road. So I think we didn't have a no there. So let's move on to guiding principles 3 and 4, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reconnecting to Lake Oswego, so that's downtown, the Willamette River and waterfront. You see that there about creating that welcoming connection. As much as we've also talked about that as being an important aspect of development, that connection. And then supporting an inclusive and economically vital community. You see those words, provide a mix of housing, jobs, amenities that support long-term vitality and makes Foothills accessible to a variety of different people, ages, incomes, and backgrounds. Go to the next one, yeah. We're going to get quicker at this.
Somebody really wants to have a condition here, I think.
So far, there's been 0 no's, so
Yeah,
we're
that's a good sign. Still waiting on one more answer, but 5 so far here.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
Nice.
Things simple. No conditions.
It's interesting as we look at all the guiding principles, what we didn't see in the first two, we finally see it show up, and then it sort of, it starts to work a little bit better. These are always challenging, like, do we dump in all 6 and just see it all in front of us, or do we go through one by one? But thank you all for doing the hard work today. So we'll move on to the next and final 2 guiding principles, and there may be others that you want to bring up beyond this, but integrating sustainability, ecology, and climate resilience. This is an opportunity to look at a variety of infrastructure components that, create resilience in a community. And there's a lot of tools out there for us to explore and kind of the basics of how we assemble buildings and streets. For instance, thinking about stormwater, tree canopy, those are really important. The wastewater treatment plant is obviously going to be creating an upgraded facility in terms of that aspect of the community, which is important. So, and then, some of it is aspirational. I think there's so much that we can, build in today, but we can certainly keep the door to explore other opportunities. We know we have groups in the community who are interested in exploring those, and I think, there's an opportunity to see where those ideas might go. We know we have to build a neighborhood here. We know the wastewater treatment facility needs to be constructed. We know some additional roads and infrastructure that get into the district are vitally important. Those things kind of need to be in place to begin to start the economics and the development of the district. And the goal is to integrate as much as we can in terms of available technologies and things that can really make a climate resilient neighborhood. So we know some of those tools are readily available. Those tools that aren't necessarily readily available doesn't mean they need to be precluded, but we may not be able to take them to a level in a planning document, but we can certainly at least open the door, set the stage, and continue to build those relationships with folks who are developing those technologies and keep that door wide open. So I know there's some strong aspirations for some certain goals, and particularly, around infrastructure in the district. And I think the idea is to not preclude and build as much as we can, knowing that we may not be able to answer all those questions early on. I don't want it to hold us back from the fundamental piece, which is figuring out ways in and out of the district, creating streets and development blocks that can support a variety of development types, and then think about the infrastructure that serves that as well. So we're going to work hard to do all that. And work with groups who want to see that hit as high a sustainable mark as it can. I think we all want to strive toward that. There may be some limitations beyond our immediate control here, but it doesn't mean we can't work toward those, and the plan can help keep that door open. So I want to just state clearly that we won't answer all the questions, but I think we're going to try and set us up so that we can explore those down the road. And then plan for adaptability over time. That's all a part of it, creating the framework, and then how do you parse that out over time as you have available income to build infrastructure, as you have willing partners who want to come in and do development. So we want to set the stage, a good basic framework that allows folks to come in and contribute over time. Sorry, next one. I can't vote. Bingo.
So can I just ask one question on the,
For sure.
on the 5 on the integrate and sustain? I think that's all great. But we've done a lot of projects in Lake Oswego. And we have these we would like to do, but then the budget comes in and the money is this much. And I mean, that's the only way we can get it built. So I don't, I just want to make sure that we're not tugging more in saying that this is the standard that we have to live by and never have anybody invest in Lake Oswego because it's just too expensive to do so. So I guess that's the only balance trick there that, and I think as we continue with better sustainability whatever inventions, it's going to get better, but I just want to make sure that we're not precluding us from actually getting developed.
Yeah, we don't want to require a bunch of things that preclude any development from actually occurring in the district. And I think when you see things like even requiring ground floor commercial being a huge barrier, you can imagine what these types of requirements could do. So I think, that will be something that we'll definitely need to incorporate into our feasibility analysis. But, I think really what we're going for here is just to determine what is and is not feasible really out of all these ideas and what makes sense for the district. Right. In terms of costing these things out and thinking about what, we could actually achieve with TIF funding, that's a conversation for later, but first we have to know what's even possible to achieve down there. Thinking about kind of what that costs is important as well. But, I think you have to know at least what the pieces on the board look like before you make those decisions. So I think we want to keep those options on the table. And I think we know that it's going to come down to some difficult choices towards the end, though. Yeah.
Right.
Councilor Afghan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the comment Councilor Wetland made applies to any of these guiding principles. So, for example, the connectivity between the two sites, it may be so expensive that we can't afford the project at all. So I think Mr. Olson answered that concern very well. We have to first find out what's possible and what's not possible before we get into return on investment as a whole project before we take the next step. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councilor Afghan. I think, as I look at all of the principles, I do think that it might be worth calling out specifically how the development relates to the downtown. That just seems to be a big one. And it seems like some of these others might even be able to be combined. I mean, we've got balancing development with the natural river environment, reconnecting to the river and the waterfront, and then integrating sustainability. I mean, there's a lot of, there seems like there's a lot of similarities. They're different, but they're half of the guiding principles are kind of, and then the sixth one is just like be adaptable. So, I don't know, I feel like it's not quite complete, is my sense.
Okay.
And making it complete would be talking about specifically how development in foothills relates to downtown. It's key.
Right, the whole integration. I agree, 100%.
Yeah, complementary, additive, yeah. Because, when I see, like, the first one just seems like walkable mixed use, aside from the word waterfront. That's basically what we did downtown, was made a walkable mixed use district. We don't want to make another mixed use. We're trying to enhance it. We're trying to be complementary to it, to draw a different group of people in, to be additive, and very thoughtful. And because we've seen recently, like, developers, they don't always make good decisions. We saw, and some of it's our codes, because we require ground floor, it's like the same old, but yet patterns are changing over the years, and we have not updated our codes to comply with it. And we saw that in Lake Grove, like recent development just doesn't go well. They built it, but it's not good. And people complain about it, and they look to the city and say, why'd you let them do it? It's like, well, free market. But, we could be better, I think, in how we think about what should go there. Because now we've got spaces that were supposed to be enlivened, but now it's banks,
Yeah.
So, which is fine, because I know they'd rather have some tenant than no tenant, but maybe there was something else, they, could have gone there, but they built it because they're required to, it's a requirement.
Yeah.
So you want to see an emphasis on sort of the different sort of economic function, I think, maybe of the foothills area as opposed to downtown, but maybe, I guess there's this sense of you want it to be integrated and for the connections to be visible. And so, I guess I just want to make sure I don't I get that right, what I'm trying to translate it. Is that accurate? So that it should be integrated, but it should serve sort of a different purpose, different function, not be duplicative.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got it, exactly.
But how about, Joe, Mr. Mayor, is it like the Vancouver, for example,
And I was just thinking of that.
yeah, like the way they did it and you compare to downtown? Is it what you mean, like something?
I don't think that their riverfront is connected to their downtown really.
No, I know, but it's a,
Right.
yeah.
It's not, and it's,
Yeah.
theirs is probably what we don't want to do. It's very, I was just telling the city manager that it's very seasonal there, very seasonal. And even as we think about, I mean, we definitely don't want to create something, because we don't right now have a seasonal downtown. It's pretty good year-round, which is critical for business stability. And even as we think like day-to-day, having a use where you have some employment, like the employment downtown, I mean, this is what was the problem with downtown Portland, as the employment is left, there's no, vibrancy. I think it's interesting kind of comparing this to larger scale developments, but you think like the Pearl District, and you think of the South Waterfront. I mean, they're very residential heavy, and like retail has been a struggle in the Pearl District. For instance, they don't have any employment there, and you cannot survive, you can't have retail survive on a PM crowd.
That's right.
You've got to have some kind of daytime activity going on. So it has to, we have to think about, how much of this is there some kind of job type, activity down there that would then support more retail, or if it's more residential, that can be fine, but you just, that is not going to support like a lot more retail at all.
No, and your retail's already in Old Town and downtown. So I mean, you don't need to recreate that here. The conditions that Vancouver offers that's similar to you is they have a waterfront development, they have a rail line that separates that from downtown. Their rail line is elevated, so they go underneath it, but there is not a good connection between the downtown and the core waterfront. That's their biggest obstacle. Hopefully the interstate bridge replacement project will alleviate some of the clover leaves that literally bifurcate downtown from the waterfront. That might help a little bit. But they are similar in that they have 2 blocks of a gap basically between Esther Short Park. They have City Hall there, but it's a series of parking lots between Esther Short and the rail line. Then once you breach that overhead thing, you've got this wonderful waterfront, but a huge disconnect in between. And the waterfront is oriented linearly, so it's running up and down. It doesn't necessarily have those view corridors out between the waterfront and the downtown. The waterfront is not visually accessible at all in Vancouver. This is absolutely different configuration here than there, where, as you've all expressed, those connections are really what's going to open the door for visually through the district to the waterfront and become an amenity for development along that connection. This is the opportunity that we have here, and I think that's what we're missing clearly in how we're articulating this as we talk about this is the space between our waterfront and downtown. It could be the next great neighborhood that is that fabric knitting, our awesome public amenity that is the community jewel, and this core downtown that really is our identity and our growth as we've established ourselves as not just a small town, but this awesome village with some mixed-use development at the core. So I think we need to work on, it's almost like you want to set up a diagram that kind of shows this dumbbell of water and downtown, and this thing is creating that filter, that weave between the two. So it's like you're locked in to the waterfront, you're locked into downtown, and this is, to me, still feels like a residential neighborhood that rises up in between that kind of extension of a walkable, accessible district that today is down in a hole and hidden around the tree line and not accessible. So
I would say that maybe there's a lot of soft words in here that, to the mayor's point, I think we need to be maybe a little bit more direct. You can say mixed-use waterfront district.
could be anywhere.
What does that mean? I mean, really, what does that mean? And support an inclusive and economically vital community. I mean, to me, that's like a vision statement. I mean, I look at it as we're going to, I mean, you put it in eloquent terms, please, but we need to add housing capacity, residential housing capacity in various forms. And we have a huge demand for senior people that want to move out of large houses, that want a really fun place to live. This could be their opportunity. We have, and I don't want to mislead people because we say affordable housing for everyone. And I mean, you look at the cottage clusters, now they're not selling at the prices, but they're like at $600,000 or $800,000 for 982 square feet. I mean, that's, to me, that's not affordable housing.
Well, they're not intended to be affordable.
No, but I mean, I think.
Cottage.
True, but all I'm saying is that what are the economics of what does affordable housing truly mean? And I think we need to have, you can't put that in mission guiding principles, but I do think that has to have a clearer aspect so that we can get through. We do need housing that more people can afford in Lake Oswego. But I also have the expectation of how expensive that it's compared to something else that's way higher. So we need a mix of housing, and I don't get that out of here. To say we want, if that
It
makes
wouldn't hurt
sense.
my feelings to incorporate something about housing need into our guiding
I know,
principles.
right.
Well,
And Councilor William brings up a good point about and it kind of goes back to just the viability of the whole thing. So, and maybe that's more in the details, but if we're talking about a mix of, I mean, it does say quite a bit in here, a mix of housing types. And it's like, and I don't know if we're talking, I mean, it's all multifamily, right? It's not single family. So, I mean, but I think then it was referencing a mix of affordability, which is great, but how? How? I mean, we know that affordable, it has to be subsidized. What's the plan? You know, it's nice to talk about, but how are we going to do it, you know?
Right. And then your point about maybe we could help subsidize that through the urban renewal district, I think my big question on this is how much is some of this, well, Mr. Olson has already warned us, the infrastructure changes are going to be very, very costly. And it's a question of whether we can even afford them or not. And are we going to use all of our marbles to build a second access point, and then there's no marbles left to pay for much of anything other than maybe a planter? So those are kind of some of the bigger issue questions that I have is at the 30,000 foot level is, hey, if this is going to cost $1 billion to do, and our portion is going to be $200 million to build the infrastructure, what's the urban renewal district going to provide? If, you know, that type of, you know, and I know that just ballparking is great, but I don't even know proportionally whether, you know, I truly think you have to do the Tryon Creek kind of the second thing instead of going through the public house. You have to do the other part. It would be a great intersection. I mean, I think that would be
Absolutely, that's an
an
investment in the district. That connection is an investment in the district.
that might be blowing
If I
the whole
may.
wad for 20 years.
I think there's a lot of opportunity to do this iteration as we go through the next steps with the options of how to mix these things and get the right mix of what you want. And I think that's where you're going to take us, Eric. Next is like, how do we make those trade-offs with the little amount that we know we're going to have?
Right.
Okay.
I guess my point, though, is still in the guiding principles, you still have to have facts so that you can achieve them, I guess is my point. And my point is that, I mean, if all our urban renewal district is going to infrastructure, that to me puts a different mindset on to where would we find money to subsidize
Are we going to talk
affordable
about the urban
housing.
renewal district next? What are we talking about next? Are we talking
we-
about like
we are
next-
not gonna
right now
talk
in this
about that.
No, we're
presentation?
talking about
Right
the-
now, we're doing the vision and
Yeah,
guiding
so
principles.
Is
So
there
we're-
more to the vision?
Yeah, only, and
that was it, other than missing what you alluded to, at least certainly in this
But
language, what's
In terms
missing.
of wrapping it up and talking about next steps, in the slide that Eric showed at the beginning, the next steps are literally getting into the options, the scenarios of how to get to all of these things.
So in June, we'll be looking at scenarios, a variety of different access points into the district.
Okay.
And then laying out that internal street network, thinking about that grand connection,
love
where,
that
where that
connection, yeah.
sits, and the variations of where that might orient itself. Once you have a street network, now you have development blocks, then you can start inserting development typologies within that framework. So are we talking about multifamily, or do we have a mix of housing types? We can all explore that within the vacant spaces between the street network, if that makes sense. And so that's part of the exercise of understanding where the key access points into the district might be. And right now, we're looking at a couple. And then what is that internal street network, and what does that create in terms of development area? Are they 4 large blocks, or are they 6 medium-sized blocks, or are they 8 smaller blocks? That all kind of establishes form. You could build a ton of middle housing where it's 3-story walk-ups, or even small 6-plex, and that'll create a certain density. We can then measure the value of that against the urban renewal area, and then try to ascertain then, well, what increment might we get if we are projecting this development scenario into the future? If A is lower density, then there's going to be less money for infrastructure. If we're in the medium or higher, that might create more increment, and that may be kind of the lever that we look at to see, okay, what is the capacity for development here, so that we can invest in enough infrastructure, and likely that infrastructure is going to be that additional connection into the district. That, and I think floodplain, getting developable area out of the floodplain and balancing that with cut. That's the challenge, but once we have that, then we can start putting things into that space to determine what value might be created. Okay. And then get into the types of uses and specifics. This is next layer after.
Okay.
Once you have sort of your preferred block structure and what you think your density of development in is, what type of development is that? What percentage of that allows for a variety of people to live in the district? And is there a subsidy that's needed to do that? How much is market rate? How much is, potentially leveraged through URA to bring that type of development? So those are layers that come on later on. And then finally, the zoning is what puts it all in place to make sure we're not precluding something, that we're keeping enough flexibility in the regulations so that we can get the things that we want. And so it's multiple things. We like to jump right to, like, what are we going to have in the district? But it's going to take us a little bit of time to figure that out.
That's very helpful framing. So we start with the form, then we can look at the economics of the district and have that kind of inform the decisions in terms of access. Mm-hmm. And then from there, zoning use is very much more specific. And so we're looking at, so all that will come kind of in the summer, the form, and then looking at the economics.
The form, yes, the form in the summer, and then once we can hone in on a form that we think gives us the best opportunity to build in within that form, then we start nailing that, like what is the allowable heights, what do we think is the target density for housing, and even then we're not getting into specifics of housing yet. We'll get into that later on. Should we be targeting so much for affordability or market rate? And Echo Northwest will help us with those numbers, because some of it is not just the value you're going to get out of the urban renewal district. It's what is important to the community. What is your housing need? What are needs in terms of parks and open space and connections? Those things are worth money. They don't make money, but they're about quality of life of living in Lake Oswego. And so that's how we balance the economics with quality of life. So a lot of factors at play here. And but we sort of work our way into it. It's I think once you get the physical form, you can then start to really be specific about development.
And just for just specifically, we are targeting May for the conceptual alternatives. So that's what we'll be here on May 19th to discuss with you all. Very high level, really not really going to go into detail about the financials still at that point. But then when we get to schematic level, we'll be starting to at least talk about layout and talk about road networks and things like that. Starting to get a little bit more real, and that is anticipated in about July is when we'll be coming to you for that discussion. And then sort of, what Jason had been discussing, we'll do a lot of refinement and then come back to you with a draft framework plan. in the fall, and that's when we'll have a lot more of those details. Probably not as many as you're looking for, but a lot more to discuss, at least with you all at council in the fall. So we'll be back with you all at least 2 times before that point, and then that 3rd time for the draft, and have a lot to discuss with you in detail.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess to cover that, May 19th will be when we're back here talking with you all. The next CAC meeting is on May 12th. They'll be the first to see these new concept level alternatives. You'll see them a week after. Just to kind of close the loop on the vision discussion, we are going to be at the Planning Commission next Monday to get some input from them. And just to know, this is kind of an ongoing discussion, so we don't ever intend to say, this is over, this is the vision statement, shut up. We're going to keep talking about it, and it's always open. So just
Will
a
we,
note
though,
there.
on the 19th see updated principles?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Councilor Afghan has a question, comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I'm hearing is that this space is going to be a multi-use space. We're going to have some residents, we're going to have some retails, we're going to have this and that. So, but all of us are putting stuff on the table that Mr. Olson, I think this is an integrated topic where, as Councilor Verdict said, the looks and feeling of this will make a difference, or the balance of how much residential we have versus how much retail we have, or how much of this and how much, it will make a difference, or how expensive it gets, it will make a difference. But my comment was also, this should be complementary to downtown and not an expansion. That doesn't preclude a multi-use. It just means, what are the stuff we wish we had in downtown Lake Oswego that we don't have? And then let's think of those being there, because we can't have it in downtown. At the same time, if this is a pipe dream and people are not coming for those specific things that we have in mind, it doesn't make sense to put it there. So all of the stuff that I think you're hearing from us is, how do we make this an integrated topic that the whole package is what we're looking for?
I know what you're talking about, Councilor Afghan. Costco, strip clubs, and dispensaries.
Yes.
Are those on the list or off the list?
Off the list.
We'll get
Thank
those in
you.
the vision.
And all accessible via zip line. Yeah.
I think the process that you just explained, coming back in May 19 and this summer, explains how we're going to get there, but keep the big picture in mind that this is an integrated topic. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Afghan.
Thank you.
Good comments. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
We appreciate
Yeah,
it. We're
we
good.
Really
Yep,
appreciate
we can run with
your
this.
work. And thank you
guys
to
are
the
great.
CAC. We have some of our CAC members sitting here in the audience. Thank you, doing good work, and thank you for all the outreach and all the community members who are participating in this process. It's been very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you, Eric. Really appreciate it. Well, we're almost done with them. Then we'll go into executive session here.
We have a 3-hour break in
Okay.
executive session.
So now we have any information from council? You want to? Okay, Councilor Corrigan.
So I went to the water partnership this week and learned that it may be the summer that's coming, because we're going to be an El Nino, maybe a super El Nino. We haven't had a lot of water. We haven't had a lot of rainfall, and we might have some pretty warm temperatures. And I want to let everyone know, I took a tour of our plant, which is really pretty spectacular. We will probably hear about communities in our area having problems with blue-green algae. It comes with temperatures and low water. Fortunately, our plant was built with ozoning, so we will, even if it's around us, we will be safe from that. And I would like everyone to know that the people that built that plant did a great job, and it won't be an issue for us. Yeah, so there you go. Thanks, that's all I had.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to do a shout out to the library and just say they've done a phenomenal job with our book this year, Tilt, and all the activities around it. And Sunday is our author event. So Sunday night, 7 o'clock, Lake Ridge. Get your tickets.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, do we
I
have?
have tickets. Yeah, we have a very good session, like it was the planning, no, I mean the sustainability and parks and recreation and our stuff on the tree code and all the, it was really something that we need to do more, like to have those board meet and talk about stuff. It was, they will come present here for us. So I am ahead of the game, so that would be very cool. And also we had youth leadership, which was a wonderful time to listen to, like it's important that Lake Oswego sometimes says what we do well. Like the Harmony Academy is something that's something extraordinary. We have one young lady from there came and present to the kids. I was like really surprised, but in a very nice way. She talked about addiction, about how she fought to come as a presenter now everywhere. She's talking about that. And these are things that our children need to hear because some of them may be in that position but are hiding. And this is nothing. She came with courage, and I was very impressed. And I say, wow, and it's not an academy that have 100 students, but it's something to encourage and something we have to be proud of. So I think that's what I have. And there's the Lake Run on the 2nd, and I'm running the 10K.
Oh, you are?
Competing against the mayor. Our team is, we have a team. It's Bleu Blanc Run. Bleu Blanc Run. The French flag is Bleu Blanc Rouge. This is Bleu Blanc Run.
Right.
It's the French school, huh? Because the city council doesn't
You'll
want
be
to
like
run.
carbo loading on croissants beforehand?
Yeah. If the city council
key.
want, we can
That's
have
key.
a team, and I will join your team.
Next year.
I will support you on the sidelines.
So that's why. So
That's great.
I want to
I
beat
didn't
the
know this
mayor.
was a
I want to
team.
beat the mayor.
That's impossible, but that's,
And the Lake Grove Wine Walk coming up in May.
oh yeah, that's
So-
coming up too.
Get your tickets. They're selling out fast. They want to sell 600 tickets. And it's guaranteed to be 100% sunshine.
It's gonna be great.
It may be filtered through some clouds, but it's definitely going to be up there. So,
It's gonna be great.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
gonna be
reminder.
wonderful.
What day in May is it? It's like the
I think it's the, you know what?
second weekend, I
The
think.
yeah, it's the second, I think it's the 16th,
Oh, maybe the third weekend.
9th or the 16th.
Okay. We, at the regional table, the Metro is doing an update to the regional RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan. They're kind of halfway through the cycle, so they're starting the update, so that work is taking place, and we're gonna, I don't know what, we don't get a lot from the RTP down here, so
I think we need to change that.
we're going to try to change that, yes. We also had, as you know, I'm representing the cities of Clackamas County on what they're calling the Regional Policy Oversight Committee, RPOC. That's for the Supportive Housing Services measure. We had our first meeting. We're having monthly meetings. We had our first meeting last week. It's a group of, let's see, there's, I think, 18 voting members on the committee, and then there's a few non-voting members, but it's a mix of elected officials, both county and city, and then metro counselors, and then folks who work in housing, homelessness, the justice system, health. So it's a good mix of individuals, but it's a brand new oversight committee. It's combining there was two groups that were overseeing the measure, and now they've been combined, and there were no elected officials involved before. And so now we're involving local elected officials, in this process. So I'm excited to be a part of it. I think the group is going to do good work. Our goal is to ensure the efficacy of this measure. There's been a lot of money that the region has to do really good work, but people in the region have very little faith in what the in the longevity of the program. And so we want to restore trust in this program and make it do good things on the ground in communities throughout the region. So that is exciting. And then at the MPAC table, Metro is also looking at some, I don't know really where they're going to get the money, but they are talking about land banking for, that's always a question on this. The land banking, which is kind of interesting because we have seen good success when we've been able to tie up land. I mean, it's how we were able to do the Hacienda project, because that was land that we owned for a staging area, but it's one of the ways when we already control the land where we can do, you know, good things with housing, because otherwise it just is, it can be tough to compete with the, you know, with the private market and be as nimble as they can be. So they're having that, we're having that discussion at Impact. That's kind of what's going on regionally.
Thank you, and I know you're wanting to get into executive session, but we do have to share a little bit more information this evening, and I do have some PowerPoints. Thanks, Laurel. So library staff arrived this morning to multiple areas of active water intrusion, if you want to go to the next slide, including locations previously identified as well as new areas. The situation required immediate response to mitigate damage and maintain safe operations. Next slide. There were 9 buckets that were utilized to capture active water intrusion on the second floor. Water has caused visible damage and warping to furniture and required rapid relocation of electronics, including computers. The second floor reference desk has now been temporarily relocated to maintain service continuity. And on the first floor, water has traveled downward, resulting in pooling on cabinets behind additional computer stations. We go on from there. Slide 3.
Wow.
Facilities, IT, and library staff responded quickly to reduce risk and disruption. Actions included relocating equipment and furniture, adjusting public service areas, and implementing measures to support working conditions amid ongoing noise, including use of noise-canceling headphones where appropriate. Notices were posted at library entrances on social media to alert patrons to potential service impacts. The presence of water, fans, and associated noise may create challenges for individuals with sensory sensitivities. Last slide. We are actively coordinating with the facilities team to have roof maintenance on site as soon as possible to identify and address the source of the intrusion. Immediate priorities are to minimize further damage, maintain safe public access where possible, and stabilize affected service areas. So to the point of the council goal, regarding the library and making decisions, I am happy to report that our goal is to get to you in May a proposed decision-making framework and timeline to walk through this year, basically to get to site selection, so that we can start making some decisions, because obviously we can't continue to operate like this. So we will make sure that this issue is taken care of, but we
One of many to come. It's one of many to come.
Yes, yes.
Issues.
So just thank you for making that a priority, and we will work very hard to get that process in front of you so that we can continue to move it along. Thank you.
Okay. The city council will
General subject of the session is previously